Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our February webinar. Everyone's just logging in, so I'm just going to talk through a couple minutes here, let everyone get situated. I don't want anyone to miss a minute of this program. Uh, Peter has pulled together a really great program on AI for everyone today. We actually were just having some fun with Averill, and Peter was hoping he'd hear that this was the number one record-setting webinar, and we're falling in at bronze medal, number third highest all-time record for BarkerGilmore. So congrats on being here. We know there's a lot of interest in AI, and everyone's wondering how they can make their systems, their departments, and everything more efficient. So this is going to be proved to be really, really terrific. So Peter Ganz, one of our great, we're so honored to have Peter as an advisor on our team. One of the things I love about Peter is whenever you're in a room and you have 20 people talking and there's always an issue that no one can figure out, Peter always just kind of throws in a possible solution that everyone goes, "Oh yeah, why did I think of that?" So he's always on his feet, always coming up with great answers. So if anyone's looking for a sounding board, there's no one better than Peter. So welcome to our webinar, AI and the General Counsel, questions you may be afraid to ask but should. So I'm going to pass this off to Peter, but first I'm just going to put a little plug in for Barker Gilmore. I think everyone knows we're executive search consultants. First and for well, no, I shouldn't say first and foremost. We're executive search consult. I run the executive search side, so I'll say that. But executive search for general counsel, chief compliance officers, and we help the general counsel build their law department. So for any in-house legal need, we're the right people to talk to. And then on the coaching and advising side, Peter Ganson and 20 other Fortune 500 general counsel on our team. All of them could have retired and just played golf. Peter was telling a story about his old golf cart just a minute ago. He could have been out there on the course 24/7, but instead committed to the advancement of others. So really driven to help people succeed. Ava, are we moving through? Yeah. So this is our complimentary program. One of the things we're very mission driven here to help people become better business-minded strategic partners. And we hear feedback. We love to hear your feedback. If anyone else out there thinks of a topic that they're saying, hey, I really could use some help or some extra coaching in a particular area, we're all ears. We're happy to accommodate and put on a webinar that would be focused in your particular area of interest. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. The questions, we have a number of questions. I've never actually seen so many questions before the webinar even got started, but if you have any questions that come up, we'll try to answer those throughout the webinar. And then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end, but we always try to put a paper together that answers many of the questions that don't get answered. So keep an eye out for what comes next from us. And then the next slide is going to talk about our great speakers today. I'm going to let Peter introduce. I already gave Peter a good plug. Really just amazing. So many years in the industrial manufacturing space, but he works with lawyers in all facets of business. So Peter's one of the best. Peter, I'm going to turn it over to you. Have a really great webinar here today.
Thank you, John. And I should tell you, John, one of the reasons we're doing this webinar on a Tuesday is because I play golf on Wednesday. But I don't. I maybe shouldn't say that. Thank you, John, and thanks to everybody for joining. We've had a lot of interest in this webinar, a lot of pre-questions that we're going to try to filter into what we were planning to say. But let me first introduce our two panelists who are going to, they're really the source of the information that we'll get. First is Pei Zhang, who is a terrific general counsel. She's the general counsel at FORTNA, which is a global leader in the industrial warehouse distribution automation space. That's a bit of a mouthful, and she's been there for a number of years. Michael O'Sullivan is the EVP and Chief Administrative and Legal Officer at Vishay Intertechnology, Inc., which is, again, a leading global semiconductor and electronic component manufacturer. Another mouthful, and he's another terrific GC. They are both really good at many things, one of which is looking at new issues facing their companies, and our issue today is AI, artificial intelligence. So they're both people I work with, and they've taught me a lot. And I thought I'm not a good person on AI. I'm still trying to figure out electronic communication. Back when I was at GC, we dealt with email and electronic documents, which when it first started with me, that was an oxymoron. So I remember coming up the learning curve on that. Seems to me AI is even a faster learning curve and potentially even more impactful. And I thought they could help. They've helped me understand it, and I thought they could help other people in the GC space understand it. Let me first uh, just go over what we're trying to accomplish here today and who we hope it's interesting for. Um, Now, let me first say we've got so many people on the line who this program is not for. It's not for people who are already very, very comfortable with AI, who love AI, are consider themselves the leader in their company on AI, get up in the morning and want to know what updates have come out on various AI tools from wherever they are. They know it. This is not for you. This is for people who are saying, well, I know AI is out there. I've been involved some, but there's a lot more I don't know than I do know. I'm worried I'm not asking all the right questions. I'm not necessarily interested in the right things. And I'm still trying to figure out how to be an impactful GC in this rapidly evolving AI world. That's the people that we hope will come away and learn something here. So just to table set, we thought the first thing we would do is do a couple of just poll questions to just see how comfortable people are with AI and their position as GCs in the AI world. So the first poll question that, again, I'll confess my ignorance. I think you just can click on um, your um, um, unit and what how you feel. First, how are you personally using AI today, if at all? And there's several choices that people can answer. And I'll ask Avril again, my confessing my ignorance. Do we just move forward, or are we going to answer these now?
Yep, we're answering those right now, and
Okay.
I will share the results momentarily.
All right. Let's see. All right. So pretty strong people are using it regularly or occasionally. Um, which you would expect that AI is part of our lives, and some people are just aware of it at this point. But most people are occasionally using it for specific tasks, almost 60%. That's the sweet spot, I think, for this program. Great. Second question is about your organizations. So, second question is, okay, as GCs, which best describes legal's current posture on artificial intelligence at your company? Leading and shaping, actively involved, but not leading, mostly reactive, intentionally cautious, waiting. In other words, trying to look away. And the last one is AI hasn't come up at all in your company. So if everyone would indicate, we'll see where folks are. Okay, excellent, excellent. So the number one answer is actively involved but not leading. We've got a strong second place, interesting, that are mostly reactive, which, so legal is being mostly reactive to AI issues and questions and concerns. And then there's a smaller group who at this point are leading and shaping AI. Interesting. And just a handful are just kind of waiting. And there's 2% of us who haven't seen AI come up yet. So interesting. Okay, so most people are involved, uh, not leading, Most people are using it for specific tasks, but not fully incorporating AI into their GC practices. Great. All right. So with that, let me start asking our two esteemed colleagues, Pei and Michael, just to sort of introduce and what we're trying to do. We're trying to help everyone understand how to get involved in a meaningful way as GCs and legal in AI in your companies, particularly when you may not feel that you are the best expert on AI. Many things we do as GCs, we're the experts. In AI, more often we won't be the experts. So I want them to try to help us understand how to get involved, how to be a leader, how to protect your companies, how to involve themselves in AI issues, both within their companies as a whole, and we'll do some discussion within the legal function itself. So with that, let me start with Pei. So Pei, when we talk about AI, that's a very broad concept. What should people be thinking about? What does AI mean when you're looking at it in your companies? And what do you want to know about how your companies are using, how your company is using AI?
Like Peter, thanks first of all, thanks for having me here. As you mentioned, like when people talk about AI or artificial intelligence, they often mean very different things. The way I think of AI, like I think of AI as a very powerful set of tools, not even a single thing. It could show up in different ways across your organization. For example, GitHub Copilot, it's a coding tool to assist the programmers with coding. And in legal, a legal AI product can help review contracts, make red lines, compare them to your templates, things like that. So, from my perspective, I think the real question is less about like what AI is. It is more about how a particular tool is used, what type of work is intended to support, and to what extent like employees or people rely on what it produces. And I think these questions kind of determine our risk exposure and our governance approach.
Well, how do you even determine as GC what AI tools are being used in your organization?
Um, that's a governance issue. Let me start with this. Like, when I remember when ChatGPT was launched, it was back in late 2022, like November-ish. So that was just a little over 3 years ago. Back then, I think it was all about ChatGPT. That's the only thing that people were talking about. Now, my kid educated me the other day, and he's like, Mom, there are about 70,000 AI tools and applications available out there. So in 3 years, from 1 to 70,000, that's how fast we're talking about. So the thing about AI and how we approach, the use of AI, we we can't ban it. We have to figure out basically our guiding principle is to, provide some guidance so that people, employees know how to use the AI in a responsible way. If you try to ban the use of AI in the organization, like guess what? People they will find workarounds. You probably have heard reference to like AI, shadow AI tools. Basically, that's the tools that employees use from time to time, like free or consumer version that the company does not even know about. If you don't have visibility, you lose control. So what we are doing is just basically, what there's an ancient Chinese story that I love. It's about a legendary a king, who lived like several thousand years ago. And at that time, the country was having some like devastating floods. Instead of building, bigger walls to block the water, he decided to basically dig a lot of like channels to direct the flow. So instead of fighting the water, he successfully tamed the flood. And I think that applies perfectly in terms of the use of AI in any organization. If you provide reasonable guidance and guardrails, and as well as approved tools, you teach people, show people how to use it responsibly.
Well, we want to help people understand sort of practicality. So how do you do that? You saying they can use a lot of tools. You want to guard against shadow tools that you don't know about. Do you require approval before any AI tools are used? Do you have a prescribed list of tools? Do you just react when someone asks you a question about a particular tool? You use the word governance, which is obviously a good word for GCs. How are you governing the use of AI within your company specifically, and how do you even know that you know what they're using?
Michael, do you want to give it a try, or do you want me to?
Sure. I can jump in on that one. So we've broadcast or shared information about what tools are available. Like Pei said, we also know that people may be using other tools. So we're trying to get ahead of that because I think the biggest risk with AI from a GC's perspective is the potential disclosure of confidential or proprietary information. So we're really focusing on educating people on how to use AI. If they're using a tool, they should be using a company authorized tool. And as part of that process, we are cataloging what tools are AI tools, particularly because as the regulations evolve in the EU, for example, there's an obligation to track the AI tools that a company is using or employees in the EU are using. So we're developing that. That's our governance structure for now, and it's evolving.
Well, do you have a prescribed list of tools that people can use, and how does legal interact to come up with those tools that people can use within your company, and how do you know what they're using?
So increasingly, software that companies are using are adding AI or will be adding an AI module. So almost, I think any software that a company's using now or in the next 6 months or year will have an AI option for whether it's, Workday for HR or Pay mentioned Copilot and Microsoft. You think of any number of software tools I'm not even familiar with from a planning perspective or a finance perspective, and they'll have AI capabilities. So the organization before those are unlocked, let's say, or people can access them through the enterprise subscription that the organization has, the leadership team has to decide, first of all, we're going to pay for that AI tool. Do we think there's value in that AI tool? And then they unlock it and they let the employees know that it's available. And that's one way to track it. Peter, you asked at the beginning what's sort of the practical question around AI. And as I got involved in AI and how Vishay wanted to shape AI, really, I think it's fundamentally asking people, what do you want to get out of AI? How do you think AI can help you with whatever issue you have or challenge you're trying to solve? What's your goal? And you start just there with that conversation.
And having gone through, these early stages, and to help folks maybe who are maybe earlier in the process or trying to evaluate how they're doing, what are some things early on that you wanted to know? How did you find out these things you want to know? What are some of the sort of easy, first, valuable endeavors that as legal you can do within the AI space in your company that you thought were successful, or you thought you should have done earlier, or were done just right? what kind of practical tools can people do who are kind of early on in trying to understand how AI impacts their company?
Let me
Sure,
uh,
sure.
let me try. I think we are doing it in a very practical way, and I believe this is exactly what similar to what many other companies are doing. Number one, we do have a policy, and it's not a 100-page book. It just basically it sets some clear principles about what's okay and what's not, like things like don't put confidential proprietary information into public free tools. Employees need to understand that AI can be wrong. And I think here's the fun fact. You can ask a AI tool to generate a decent AI policy for you. And we do have, Peter, you asked the question, we do have approved AI tools. We have enterprise ChatGPT license. We have the GitHub Copilot for developers. I think there's a few other vetted tools. Like I said, the idea is to give employees, some safe options so they're not going to find workarounds with some other random tools. And most importantly, we do have a cross-functional AI council from the very beginning. The AI council includes me from legal, our chief information officer, and some other, senior execs from other business, basically business leaders. And the council, indeed, we meet on a regular basis to review use case studies, cases, and we stay basically, I think the idea is to stay flexible and we will adjust our approach if necessary. And I think here's the key. We know this isn't perfect and we are okay with it because I firmly believe that something is better than nothing. Things like AI evolve so fast, things are very fluid. If we wait for the perfect, governance approach or perfect policy, I think the policy could be outdated maybe even before we finish writing it. So the goal is really to stay calm and stay ahead of the bigger picture, while letting the business just, continue to move and innovate. We just need to, like I said, we need to tame the flood. We just can't block it.
So, Michael, do you have a similar, and would you recommend a similar kind of um, policy council, AI council, multifunctional uh, um, governance group within your company? And if so, how do you set it up? What is its uh, charter? What is its work stream? How do you deal with that kind of issue that Pay's talking about?
Well, honestly, I'm leading that for our company right now. I think because AI impacts our company on the business side. We sell products that go into the data centers and the infrastructure supporting AI, which is great. But we also had to figure out how we're going to use it to run our business better. And I sort of at a meeting where people were looking around the table and we were all talking about it, and it just was clear no one felt entirely comfortable with it. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started leading it from the company's perspective, and we're evolving. We're in the process. So the way the governance structure that Pay described makes a lot of sense. That's not exactly the way we're doing it today, but we're actively reviewing how we're doing it. And I know 2 months from now, 3 months from now, it will look different. But we didn't want to wait, let's get going. Like Pay said, you want to control the flood, not try to stop it. Um, I think for people who might be on the call and aren't really sure where to start, my advice is to try using an AI tool. Just pick one, uh, ChatGPT or Claude or some tool that's part of a software you have, and try it. And then also talk with people who know more about AI and its applicability than you do. Go to a seminar. I did that. I attended a seminar. It was focused on AI, listened to some really smart people talking about AI. The CEO of
Listen,
Bot.
listen to a BarkerGilmore webinar.
Exactly. It's a great plan. I think you jump in the water or if that's a little too much, you at least wade into the water, and that's how you get more comfortable with it.
I think you both have identified something very important. And as I tried to introduce in that, this is an area that many general counsels aren't going to feel as comfortable as other things that we advise on, other things that we impact, other things that we lead. And can you give any other guidance you or Pay to GCs who need some early wins to show their credibility, to show their impact, where legal can provide early value so that you don't feel like you're catching up and you don't feel like you're not part of the process that you found effective.
Yeah, I would say similar to, I would describe I'd give a different analogy that you should, my view is you should not, you should build the plane and fly at the same time. Don't, I would go to the leadership team and say, look, people are asking about AI, or your leadership team is asking about AI, and you don't have all the answers. Probably no one does. But don't wait till you have all the answers because it's moving so fast. Just accept that your process, governance or review process, or the way you're going to track the AI tools, or how you're going to take people's ideas on use cases, that you're going to work on that while you start implementing AI in different parts of your business. Because you can identify an issue that you could apply AI to, and you could start with that one while you're developing and improving your governance. So my advice is just don't wait, that accept the fact that it's evolving. And I contrast that with how I think GCs usually work. Normally, we see a regulation that's going to be effective in 2 years in a state that you do business in or a country you do business in. So you start researching the regulation, you get advice from outside counsel or a consultant, you talk to your internal team, whether it's operations or compliance or HR. You put together a plan to be in compliance with that regulation or that law in 2 years. So it's like this big waterfall of work, and then you finally go over the edge when the regulation comes into effect and you're compliant. AI is not like that. I think you can't wait till you have all the answers and then, open the door. You just need to accept that it's an evolving area and your approach will have to evolve with it.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
and I want to add, Peter, maybe it is important to, because I call AI as a set of the tools, and I think it's important for me to call it a tool because I think that's one of the many useful way to think about it from the governance and management perspective. Like it is, very sophisticated. It is probably smarter than, all of us. But fundamentally, what GC should consider is that it is still a tool, essentially speaking, it is still a tool that like human that we use to get our job done in a different way or in a better way. It doesn't make decisions. It could really make wrong decisions. It doesn't have the human critical thinking or judgment. It doesn't understand your business like you do. It doesn't have the institutional knowledge. The person, a human, still has to figure out how to prompt it, review the output, verify the accuracy of the output, and then most important, decide what to do with it. So the way if we frame the AI applications or AI as a, let's just say a set of the tools, if it's a tool, then it means that human remain accountable for, how it's used. If it is a tool, then the questions become more, I guess, manageable. Like who is using the tool? What are they using it for? Do they understand the tool's limitations? Are they reviewing the output? To me, that is just, another governance problem that we can effectively manage. It's all about oversight, policies and training, things we already know how to do. So I think it is important, if we classify AI as a tool.
Well, it's an interesting concept you're saying about once you get the AI information, you need to apply judgment. A question that I've had thinking about when I was a GC and a risk that I would foresee, and I'd be curious on you and Michael's reaction to this, is when you get business people who now use AI in the legal space. I mean, it used to, I mean, when I was a GC, I mean, it was limited what they could do on their own. And, you could say, you're not going to hire outside lawyers and get advice without going through legal. But now you can go on ChatGPT or some of these other things. Do you see a risk? And if so, how do you deal with it? Of within your organizations that people in the business side either, you know, bypass legal and do their own legal work, or use it to challenge you, or um, second guess you, or again, just avoid even getting legal in the loop because they can just get their own legal advice. Do you see that happening? And if so, how are you dealing with it?
Um, it is definitely happening. And honestly, I think I get it. The lawyers are using it, so are the others. Um, they are indeed wonderful tools. They're just it does create some interesting conversations, I think. We have situations where colleagues, our colleagues, they just don't think that they need legal anymore. We've had a situation where someone used AI to draft a agreement, and the output, in other words, the document looked just great, with the proper formatting, all the typical standard clauses. It looked very professional. But the problem is that it was the wrong type of the document for what we are actually trying to achieve. It just basically the AI gave, our colleagues something that looked right, but it's just wrong. We also have situations where our non-lawyer colleagues, they will second guess legal advice, and they will come to us, and because, ChatGPT told me something different. We had a senior leader actually who asked ChatGPT in a tricky employment situation. And I think probably the ChatGPT could give a reasonable general answer, like, what the statute says, what the basic legal framework is. I think that part it could do fine. But then the problem is that it's going to give you a generic answer to a specific, like heavily context-based problem. And I think especially in employment law, that's where it could get into really, serious trouble. And here's how we practically handle it. One of my lawyers in my team, she's got a great way of handling this. And when someone, approaches you with an AI generated like response, first you acknowledge their effort. Like say something about, I see you put a lot of thoughts into it, but then you should push back firmly. You should say something about, this is the legal work, let the lawyers do their work. And I think if you frame it in the right way, people will understand. It's like, we're not going to use ChatGPT to do their work either. So they will understand that.
Well, Michael, how have you had issues, and are you doing education on that of people's use of AI to provide, their own legal work, legal advice? Are you seeing that?
Unfortunately, I have seen that. You hope that your business leaders act responsibly in how they're using AI. I had a situation related to tariffs and country of origin. Country of origin, it's become more in the common nomenclature recently because of tariffs, and where a product is manufactured directly impacts whether a tariff applies when it's imported into another country. So that affects our business. And of course, our trade compliance group has been giving advice to business leaders on that so they can make decisions about where they want operations and how they want to ship products. But in one instance, I received a memo. It was a really official looking memo, really well put together, had gave legal advice with citations, and I started reading it. It had come from one of our business units, and I realized quickly that the law was wrong. So I checked the citations, and they didn't actually exist. So I called this business leader because he had sent it to a number of people, and I said, "So where did this come from? What was the source?" And he sort of avoided the question. We talked a little longer. I asked him again in a different way. And, through the conversation, eventually he said it was a collective effort and he got most of it through the internet, which I deduced to mean it was from AI. He never said that, but I just talked to him about being very careful with using different tools and that we have experts here who can help with these questions. And it was misleading to send it around the organization because it gave people wrong information. So again, that's not common, but I have had that experience.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question that's kind of related in terms of, AI use of legal or providing legal. Have either of you had situations yet where either your fellow C-suite executives or the board says, "Well, I understand that AI now can substitute for a lot of legal work, and you shouldn't have to be spending." This is one of the questions we got also from outside. You should be able to cut your legal overhead. You should be able to cut your legal headcount because I'm reading that AI is replacing a lot of legal work. How have you dealt with those suggestions by your fellow C-suite executives or the board?
Um, Michael, do you want to start?
Sure. So it's common, especially you read online stories, Amazon slash 30,000 jobs in Q4 carrying over into Q1 because of AI or the becoming more efficient. They want to reduce layers, but certainly they're using AI to help them in producing some of the work that they provide. But their workforce is 10 times that size, right? So that's a big number of people, but they have a huge workforce. Of course, leaders see those kinds of stories and then want to know how that applies to our organization. Which jobs in legal or finance or HR are we going to be able to eliminate? And it's not that simple, right? I think AI certainly lends itself into repetitive type of work or reviews that do exist in legal and HR and finance. But the first question is, well, where's the data? Because your AI is only as effective as your data. Is your data even centrally located where a tool could actually access it or access all of the data? Can the tool only access part of the data? Those are fundamental questions that I think some leaders don't immediately understand, but that's the conversation. The first part is, well, where's the data that we think we can harvest and leverage AI?
Interesting, in terms of doing that. And since we're starting to shift a little bit into AI and the legal function itself, um, how are you dealing with that within your legal groups? Are you requiring your lawyers to use AI? Are you making it sort of an open invitation, use AI where they can? Are you giving them specifics? Are you having um, thresholds of doing? How are you dealing with, again, you get pressure of use AI in legal within your legal function itself? How are you incorporating AI into what your lawyers are doing and your staff are doing?
Um, First of all, I don't mandate it. I think, the men if if I mandate, the use of AI in my team, it could be counterproductive. But I don't necessarily let, the lawyers opt out completely either. I think here's basically how I approach this. First, I definitely lead by example. Um, I I will constantly talk about how I am using AI. That's why I am, participating at the webinar. I will share constantly what is working and what is not. I also bring in colleagues from other functions who are using AI very well. And so when the lawyers, when they see that their boss and colleagues are using, for example, ChatGPT, and it's not that scary, I think it makes it less intimidating. And I will constantly encourage them to give it a try. Like try use it to draft a policy and see what you think of. So basically, I'm trying to create a safe environment where people has the permission to explore it.
What about you,
But this,
Michael? Or how are you dealing with AI within the legal world?
In the same way, I we're not mandating people to use AI, and I recognize that people on my team have different levels of comfort with it. We've we have identified and we're using an AI tool to help with contract reviews, which is sort of a natural place to start. We've been very pleased with that. And when we were, I did really want my team to look at a way to implement AI into part of what we were doing. And so I put together a couple of people one who was definitely more technologically, uh, I guess, disposed and one who wasn't. And I wanted them to work together to investigate some of these tools. And they went at their own pace, and I think they had a good experience and they helped us make a good selection.
And what about outside counsel? We had a question that came through the portal on outside counsel. Is one of the early um, points that you're looking at or looked at putting requirements on outside counsel to use AI or to show you what they're doing on AI? How are you dealing early on with outside counsel and the use of AI? Or are you not putting, or is that not something that has been a priority yet?
and I think I take a similar approach. There's no mandate. I will be focused, on the output, the advice that we were given, not necessarily on like, whether they're using any AI tool or not. But I will, take a closer look at the bills and make sure that there's no excessive, for example, time entries related to, for example, research because my expectation is that they should take advantage of reasonable AI tools to make themselves even more efficient and productive.
So you're just looking at it, expecting them to use. Are you doing anything in terms of requiring reporting on use of AI, Michael? Are you doing anything from outside firms? Is that something, we break down a lot of things that on bills. Are you starting to break down use of AI on any of your reports from outside counsel?
I haven't seen it that way. That doesn't mean it's not happening. I have seen one firm approach us with a monthly administrative fee, which was a percentage of what they bill us. I don't know if that was directly related to AI. It was captioned as, you know, a technology type of fee. And we said, no, we're not paying that. Of course, I mean, basically, I think if we paid that, we're adding to their margin, right? That they can, of course, bake those costs into their fees. But for us to pay the fees and then that additional technology fee, or I forget what else they called it, I just said no, and I told them it wasn't competitive. And then that was the last I heard about that.
Interesting. I think there's going to be more about that that coming up. Another question, a different kind of question that someone asked us that I think is interesting is the question on junior lawyers, more junior lawyers in your organizations, and this could apply to outside counsel as well. Are it's the other hand of you trying to get some of the more senior lawyers to actually embrace AI and not do everything from scratch, but junior lawyers over relying on AI, even to the extent of, if they haven't done it enough themselves or produced enough themselves of the product, are they qualified to evaluate the AI production? And Pei, you talked early on about the importance of judgment on AI product, but someone asked an interesting question that if junior lawyers, aren't doing it themselves, whether in outside firms or within your departments, are they going to be qualified to evaluate AI production? Is that a question that you've thought about? Is it something you've been concerned with, or is that not yet hit the radar?
I haven't necessarily had that problem yet in our organization. And I think, that could be a different perspective, a way to look at the next generation of the lawyers, junior lawyers. Again, like as I mentioned, AI is just a tool. It is a smarter tool, but it is still a tool. So I think the question should be like, how do we train the next generation of lawyers to be even more effective in a world in the future where like AI is gonna be part of the standard toolkit. And the way I think junior lawyers, especially younger generations, I think they're actually going to be extremely valuable when it comes to AI. I think Michael has already mentioned that. They could be more, tech savvy and more adaptable. Like I've got two kids. When I'm still trying to figure out ChatGPT, they already moved on to Gemini. By the time I started using Gemini, they're onto, I don't know, Claude or something else. They constantly have like two or three different AI tools open on their screen, and then they instinctively know which one is better for what. So I think younger generation of or junior counsel, lawyers, younger generations, they can actually bring fresh perspectives into how to effectively use these tools to, I don't know, transform legal operations, our internal legal workflows. Maybe we can automate more routine work. Yeah, so, yes, it still requires human judgment and oversight, always. Like, that's not really unique to junior lawyers. I mean, I think that's true to for everyone who is using AI.
Good. Let me ask a question. We had a couple of questions that came in, and thinking about the regulatory environment and Michael, you were mentioning, how we typically deal with regulations. It's a very process oriented, and we kind of know how to deal with regulations. AI is moving very, very fast. How are you keeping up with um, regulations about AI, the international aspect? You mentioned the EU, which is always different. How are you doing? Are you relying on outside counsel? What are you doing about staying up on the regulatory environment for AI?
Well, again, I try to read from different sources to understand what's changing in parts of the world. But I also have a team that helps me with that. We have a compliance team, and I was fortunate that there's a woman on our team who has a particular interest in AI, and so she, on her own, has taken time to research some of these different issues. I mean, she's on the compliance team, so she also has a professional reason to do this. But in particular around AI, she's been very helpful in flagging different issues for us from a compliance and governance perspective.
Interesting. Pei, how have you approached the regulatory environment and changing protocols about use of AI? How are you monitoring that any lessons for people to look at?
Yeah, so I mean, we can definitely lean on the resources that, are already monitoring the landscape. And first of all, the AI landscape is fragmented. There's no federal level AI, law yet. I mean, in a few states, I believe California, Colorado, I believe, they've got their AI law, and of course in EU got the EU AI directive. But here's how we do. At first, the outside counsels, the law firms, they send updates on latest, proposed regulations or new latest AI laws. So just make sure that you subscribe to that. And also we use our legal research, like subscriptions. We use Westlaw, Practical Law. But like, anything else like Lexis or Bloomberg Law, they all have alert system that can send you updates on AI related developments. I think it's okay, to acknowledge that we just can't keep track of everything everywhere. Rely on other sources and that can, they're already monitoring the landscape.
Here's a question for you related. Have either of you seen yet uh, customers in their audit rights and contracts want to be able to audit your use of AI? And if so, or is that if you've seen that, does that raise issues of confidentiality, of proprietary developments that customers want to know use of AI by you, or is that something that you've seen?
I haven't seen that, Peter, but it might be more because of the business we're in. I mean, we make products, semiconductors and capacitors, resistors, so we don't provide a service. Maybe if we were providing a service, um, the customers would be more interested in understanding how much of that service is because of our knowledge or because of some other AI that we've used.
Okay, Pei, have you seen anything in your world? And if how would you deal with it if a customer wanted audit rights on your use of AI as a company?
I personally haven't seen that yet either. I've only seen it, in the non-disclosure agreements where the customers or the other side, they, put an extra clause, like, basically not to upload their confidential information into unapproved AI tools, clauses like that. It's more about confidentiality than anything else. I think if I see any clauses like, the right to audit, I think I'm gonna, have a call, just have a call discussion with the outside account with the other side. Try to understand like the really, what is behind the scene, what is driving that requirement, and then we can talk about, how we can mitigate the risk, address their concern without having a excessive, the obligation to audit.
Good. I'm going to give each of you a chance to make a comment or two, just in summary of lessons learned, something a takeaway, and I'll look at some of the questions, see if there's something we missed. But maybe think about it in the context of how do you know what is good enough in this area as GC? But a lesson learned for folks, last thing they can take away, and maybe with a focus on, how do you think about what is good enough in the AI world? I'll let you pay. Why don't you start and then let Michael chime in?
First, lesson learned, don't try to be a AI expert. You won't, nobody is, at least in the legal world yet. Just don't get anxious that you have to become an AI expert. No, you don't have to. And then, honestly, the best way to figure it out is just to go use it. If you have an enterprise ChatGPT account in your organization or whatever tool your company approves, just start experimenting. Ask questions, see what it does well and what it doesn't. I think you will learn a lot more from hands-on use.
Excellent. Michael?
My advice would be don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't wait. start wherever you want to start, whether it's talking to your businesses about how they'd like to use AI or sharing what our, governance policy is going to be, or just starting very basically with reminding everybody not to use or share company confidential information on AI, whether if it's their private AI account, that's still sharing confidential information. You could just start there, but I would just start.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both. One last question that I saw came in, which is interesting. Um, how do you deal with um, recording, using AI to record conversation? Do you bar that? Do you have it disclosed that people are creating lots of recordings using AI? And is that a specific issue? We had a couple of questions that came in on that. Is that something that you are concerned about? And if so, have you done anything early on about the use of AI to record or note take or other ways that create even more documents and even more records?
Yeah, so that,
Um, Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yep. So that actually just came up with us. I mean, it's not a new topic, but it's become relevant for us this last couple of weeks. There's different ways to do this. I know some companies are just prohibiting any kind of recording of calls. I know some companies are creating a policy where you can record calls, but they're destroyed after 30 days, or you can record calls unless it's with legal compliance or involving a board member. I've seen those policies. We're honestly we haven't landed yet on what we're going to do, but we definitely need to give people some more advice on when to use those tools and how to use them. Even if we are going to allow it, you need to let people know that you're using that part of the tool.
Excellent. Well, that's something I think that, like many things in this area, are going to come up. We could go through questions and think about scenarios, I think, for another hour. But unfortunately, I think we're out of time. Thank you both so much for this. I've learned even more from you. And I'm going to turn it over to John for any last comments on Barker-Gilmore and what we can do for people.
That sounds great. And we've been hearing out in the field that even from a recruiting standpoint, people, our competitors, are talking up AI and pay. I think you landed exactly what I was thinking to talk about is human critical thinking, the lack of human critical thinking with these AI tools. And I'll just say we as a company investigated AI tools toward the recruiting business, and I'm very happy to report they were all absolutely awful, and we did not implement them. So I would just say be very careful. Make sure you do your due diligence when you're evaluating these tools because they'll hype it up like it's the next best thing, and then when you actually use them, you'll find out that they're falling short, and the last thing you want to do is make mistakes. So be very thorough at your in your investigations. But again, thank you so much, Peter. Always a great time. Great messages. Pei and Michael, thank you so much for joining us. These people do it out of the goodness of their heart. As Peter says, we don't pay very well here. So anyway, thank you so much again to your dedication to helping others be better at what they're doing. Keep in mind, we will be having these webinars through the year, so feel free to attend. Averill will be sending out an email in the next week or two with the recording, and then we'll also have a written document about some of the information that was shared today. So thank you very much. We'll see everyone next month. Let us know if we can help in any way from a coaching and advising standpoint, and then certainly from an executive search. So have a great rest of the day.